All right, we're recording. I want to welcome people to the second session in the April 4th, 2024 meeting of the Seattle Design Commission. From 10:30 until 12:30 today, we'll be getting a briefing from a team that's being led by the Downtown Seattle Association and their partners to install digital kiosks in areas of downtown and in business improvement areas throughout portions of Seattle. We do have one member of our commission who is attending virtually, and we'll also be recognizing them throughout in terms of questions. Obviously, Brian Markham, who's our commissioner who's attending, won't be able to go on the field trip, but we'll make that work. Brian, why don't you start us out with the introduction, and if you could indicate your role in the commission, that would be great.
Yeah, appreciate that, Michael. Hi, everybody. Brian Markham. I'm an engineer, commissioner, and looking forward to your speak. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Good morning, Adam Amrine, Urban Planning Position.
Good morning, I'm Molly Spitalnik. I'm the urban designer.
Phoebe Bobert, Landscape Architect Commissioner.
Good morning, I'm Jay Backman. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm the Get Engaged Commissioner.
Jill Prairie, at large Commissioner and Chair.
Zubin Rao, Architecture Commissioner.
Kate Clark, our Commissioner.
Ben Gist, Architect Commissioner.
John Scholes with the Downtown Seattle Association.
Dan Eder, Policy Director with Mayor Harrell's office. Mark Brands, Landscape Architect with Site Workshop.
Clay Collette with iSmart City.
Jack McCullough, I'm here with the DSA.
We have a number of people attending the meeting. For a record, if you could introduce yourself as well, starting with Brian Durkin.
Ryan Durkin. I'm a land use attorney working on that. And Jessica Burton with
Jeff Warren.
Ellie Stelton with SDOT Street Use. Amy Gray, SDOT Street Use. Beverly Barnett, SDOT Street Use. Jeanette Dubois, SDOT Street Use. Alfred. Waterfront and civic projects.
I'm Bender, I'm a designer and a citizen.
Paul Maurice, Keith Washington, beautiful.
Sonia Yang, a consultant at iSmart City.
Yeah.
We have the meeting structure. This is the initial briefing that the commission will receive on the proposal. There will be subsequent meetings to look more specifically on the technical and specific nature of the proposal, as well as the public benefit. I think when we were trying to organize today, and that we will go upstairs and look at a kiosk example. Thank you so much for the people who made that happen. It was very much appreciative. We'll just have about a 10 or 15 minute introduction, Mark, and then go upstairs and then come back, and we'll have you till 12:30. Because it's a briefing and we're not taking a formal action today, we do a little different format, but that format will be led by Jill, starting with questions and then comments, if you will, after the close of questions. And then we'll also have an opportunity for public comment. Mark?
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for the lead in there, Michael. So we will take a break. We'll go upstairs and interact with the kiosk. But before that, we've got several speakers just to introduce and reintroduce this project. This is a project that has been around, a proposal that's been around. And we're going to share with you why this is different. So we're going to have Dan speak, then John, and then Jack. And then Clay will say a little bit, and then we'll go upstairs. We want you to experience the kiosk first. So when we come back down and talk about the functionality and the size, it'll just make a little bit more sense. And then I'll take over and we'll just talk about next steps. And really today's about, it's an introduction. So we were looking for your guidance going forward. Joe, we know you have deep experience here with this particular thing, and so really interested to hear from you as well. It's really setting ourselves up for the next meeting, and so which Michael and I are still working on a date. We know you're very busy with a very large project, so we hope to get back to you this summer and then share what the guidance that you've provided with us today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dan.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the project. I'm here to let you know that the mayor and the mayor's office are very excited about this moving forward. We have been engaged for some time with the Downtown Seattle Association to work on a partnership agreement and on the details of how the project would get rolled out. The mayor has a downtown action plan, and this set of improvements are in alignment with the downtown activation plan. Kiosks are attractive to the city because they will provide public benefits first and foremost. They will, as you'll hear in some detail in the coming meeting and meetings, provide signage and wayfinding for visitors, which will be especially important for the upcoming FIFA World Cup games in 2026. They also provide public messaging, both on a routine basis and during exigent circumstances like bad things happen. You may want to get some information out to people. They'll provide 911 calling capability for folks and also Wi-Fi in the area where they're installed. They're also important because they will provide revenues. The advertising that will happen on the kiosks generates revenues for DSA to do things that the city cares deeply about, street activation, street cleaning, and additional ambassadors and the like. The good things that DSA already does, they can do more of with more revenue. There's also the intent to make kiosks available for installation in business improvement areas outside of downtown. Those BIAs, as they're frequently called, would be able to keep the revenue that's generated from those kiosks. And the city has the ability to share in the revenue with DSA. So in brief, I am excited to be here to present this project to you, to hear about your questions, and engage with you as you learn more and get you follow-up information. So who goes next?
John. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you to Dan and the mayor's office for their leadership and partnership on this. Thanks to you all for your service. We appreciate the opportunity to have some time with you today to talk about this proposal. The city, for going back many years, has considered similar types of programs to what is being proposed today. I would say this is unique and distinct in the quality and the significance of the public benefit it provides, both in the product itself, which you will see and experience and interact with upstairs, but also in how the revenues can be applied to improvements and enhancements within public rights of way in downtown. And we believe that we can do better than a 4-inch screen and a hard copy map that may be out of date a week after it's printed, and helping people engage and experience and discover the urban realm and our downtown. And that matters now perhaps more than ever as we continue to revitalize the downtown. And we've seen so much change, and we have lots coming online and are inviting people from around the region, around the country, and around the world to experience this great place. And we can help them navigate it, experience it, engage with it in a much more logical and easier way. We've been exploring this specific proposal for about 5 years. I began in downtown Denver with our counterpart, the Downtown Denver Partnership. Several years ago, they're now on the ground in more than a dozen cities. We visited a number of those cities to see it in action, Baltimore, San Antonio, and Denver. We've done due diligence with city leaders there and with our counterparts as well that have formed partnerships with Ike to make this program a success. And we've not found a product that delivers this quality of public benefit and engagement of helping folks navigate and understand the downtown as what Ike has developed. There's not a comparable out there. And again, I think the big difference here from other programs that the city has considered in the past is the significant level of public benefit and engagement and wayfinding that I think is highly complementary to the Seamless Seattle program, which we've been huge fans of. We think this aligns well with a static wayfinding program that SDOT's done a terrific job in piloting downtown, and we look forward to seeing it expanded. We think this is an added benefit to that program. There would be 30 of these in the pilot phase located within the boundaries of the Metropolitan Improvement District, so roughly south of Denny Way, west of I-5, east of the waterfront, and then north of Pioneer Square. We would intentionally avoid the historic areas. We think there's plenty of other real estate in the downtown and high pedestrian corridors where these would add significant value, and not propose locating these within the historic areas. And as Dan noted, these we do have an agreement with Ike for a share of the portion of the revenue that's generated from the limited amount of advertising that is displayed on these when they're not in active use. And our program and agreement with Ike and with the city would be to deploy 100% of that revenue back into public benefits, which would be consistent with the programs and goals and objectives of the Metropolitan Improvement District, which is the property owner district formed in 1999, reauthorized by the city last May for another 10-year term, that funds cleaning, beautification, public art, community engagement and outreach of folks in need, park management, and other programs and initiatives that benefit the public realm and members of the public and all those who live, work, and visit downtown. I won't say much about the kiosk and the functionality itself because you'll see it in real life here shortly. I think be similarly impressed as we are with the product. One thing that's important for us is Ike's ability on the back end to maintain and update and keep relevant the applications, the operating system, et cetera. So they manage these from their office in Columbus, so that we're ensuring that these are relevant to the times of today and tomorrow. And we would be a program partner with them on the content, the applications, and making sure that they speak to the needs and interests of the public and what's happening and coming in our downtown. So this isn't a product that gets located in the public realm and becomes quickly dated. They've got a strong track record of both upkeep on the maintenance of the hardware, but also on the operating system. And I just wanted to make that point as I conclude, and look forward to seeing the product and to your questions later this morning.
Thanks, John. I'm just here kind of for historical interest, and I'll keep this brief. As a longtime DSA member, I was counting the other day, and I think we're into our 6th mayor since we started talking about this program. And so my pitch to John when I came on is to say, we've got to get it done this time. This is a much smaller program. It's intentionally a pilot where the others were not. I think it's going to give us a chance to figure this out. We're working with SDOT. We're going to be working with you to develop a series of protocols and design guidelines that will allow us to roll this out in a logical way. But we've got to do it, and we have to do it so that it's ready for World Cup. 2 years from this June, we will see hundreds of thousands of people in the city, and the city needs to be ready for that. And this, I think, Dan, you would agree, is part of that delivery. So I'm going to hand it over to Clark.
Clay.
Or Clay's next.
And I'll just say one thing too. So the presentation is pretty text heavy. That's unusual for us, but it's a good leave behind. And anybody that publicly wants to go up and grab it, I think from the commission website, it does have a lot of good information in there. So like we would typically do in a design review board where it is print heavy, I think it has that ability to actually educate folks. So that's why we won't be reading from it, but it is there, and in case you want to go back and look at it as well. So timeline.
Thank you. And before I jump into the timeline, just a little bit about us. First of all, good morning. Thank you all for allowing us to be here. We're really excited to be here. We're really excited to partner with John at the DSA and the City of Seattle. As John mentioned, we're in the ground in 18 cities all across the country. We started this business in 2016 in Denver, and the concept was to develop a self-sustaining, modern, revenue-generating wayfinding system. Wayfinding is an essential part of every city's fabric. Convention center this way, retail that way. You need those static elements, but often they're out of date, and often they're on a city's cost on their balance sheet. And so we wanted to develop something that's more modern and that's not competitive with any of those other wayfinding systems and tools, but something that's really a complement and updates itself and is unique and modern. We've spread across the city. We're now in 18 cities. In every city, we learn something new. We improve the product. We improve the platform. Now we're on sort of the iPhone 14, Ike 3.0, and we're really excited to share that with you all and show it to you upstairs. And thank you for letting us lug in a full demo unit for that purpose. We met John in 2018 and have been working on this particular project since then. And so I hope you'll find that the product itself is laced with a lot of community benefit, a lot of public art, a lot of wayfinding, free Wi-Fi, a lot of public amenities. And all of it is, of course, supported by advertising, and we share that revenue back with the DSA and with the city for reinvestment back into downtown. This is a snapshot of our timeline. It's obviously optimistic, and we know is always flexible. Our overarching goal, as Dan mentioned, is to have kiosks in the ground before the 2026 World Cups, which are in June of 2026. And that's very achievable from where we sit right now. Our goal for this year would be in the fall, of course, with this commission's recommendations and the rest of the entitlement package and documents to go to City Council and the relevant committees, which would set us up for sort of a year-end programmatic level approval, and that would give us 2025 to do all of the site-specific outreach, diligence, power assessment, site assessments, and permitting to be able to launch in the end of 2025, early 2026 in time for the World Cup. So that's our goal. We have
Save your questions for the Q&A. So Clay's going to go next here and run through this. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah. Thank you all, and I'll try to be efficient, not redundant.
We can scoot over.
So we explained a bit of our origin. Started in 2016 in Denver. We're now in 18 cities with 4 more on the way. That's varying climates, varying urban density, all in commercial districts where we site, but cities like Atlanta, Columbus, Denver, Houston. On the West Coast, we've been in Berkeley for a few years, and we launched Oakland last month, and we'll be in San Diego later this year.
supportive in business groups, but if you set one of these up downtown
Yeah.
and let 500 people walk by and ask them just one question, do you want this here or not? And if majority of them say yes, I mean, to me, that's like the kind of feedback I would need to understand if it's net positive or not, because I can look at the design of it and say it's a great design, but it's hard to say whether that's a good trade-off or not, because there is something great about not having advertising in public space. So I guess I would just really like to see that particular element of feedback from the public outreach process. And then similar to the other comments, just if there was a way to design the program that there was a set aside, like a dedicated set aside, maybe it's 2 slides out of 8 where one is dedicated for artists or community groups, or that would also make me feel better about sharing of this space, because then it's something that enables people as well as advertises to them, right? So then there's some balance there. So rather than just being the leftover unsold, if there was written into the contract, 1 out of the 8 slides is for the city, 1 is for the community, and 6 are for the advertisers. That kind of information would help me weigh whether whether it was a good balance or not. So
good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Really interesting. Also to be at this point of the iterations of it. A few quick questions. How do locals file complaints for repairs for these? What is that process like?
It's a good question. Every city does it.
Clay gives out his cell phone number. Print it out there somewhere.
It's a really good question. Every city we do it differently. I think the best way to do it, we have information in the info panel on the kiosk itself, and that will allow you to contact us directly and initiate repairs. What we often do is we set up city resources as well. So a city website that we sort of co-host with them that allows everyone to get to us as quickly as possible, but report through the city or to us. I'm not familiar with the maintenance incident reporting in Seattle, but we can also integrate with that to have report your Ike kiosk here kind of thing.
We have over 100 ambassadors. John will talk about boots on the ground, eyes on the street, who will be involved in this.
Yeah, so our objective is to get to it before anybody in the public sees it. So we employ 165 full-time ambassadors. We meet 7 days a week, 362 days a year, 6:30 a.m. until 9 p.m. So it'll be part of their task and activities, just as taking graffiti off pay stations, picking up scooters, keeping the right-of-way clear, clean, and cared for is today. So we will add this to their duty. And then Ike has a team that will actually do the cleaning and maintenance. And we've got pretty stringent language in the agreement that we have with Ike that's reflected in the agreement that we have with the city as well.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's great to hear, and maybe just making it clear about, for example, if the interface isn't interactive in that moment, how is a local person, how do they know who to contact and what that process is like? Because I know that's been an issue in past precedents with separate projects like this, not with this company. Can the interface play video?
It can.
Okay. I was thinking of kind of an equivalent model, how Alaska Airlines really successfully partnered with the Seattle International Film Festival on their screen. So it's kind of the same thing where it's this preset form that everybody's sort of familiar with. So I have a few more questions about the insides of it, but that was just one thing that I was thinking about. If you could do videos, that's great to hear. And then also, what about, so you've rolled this out pre-pandemic in cities. So how does a high-touch surface interact with, future pandemics and people's heebie-jeebies around interacting with shiny,
Great question, and we had to learn it while we were doing it with respect to COVID. So the first step is sending teams out, like John mentioned, to go clean them and do that, daily. And then we actually started using, I think it probably existed before COVID, but we didn't know about it, like a photocatalytic spray that you spray on the unit, and it oxidizes in sunlight and kind of washes germs off throughout the day. And so that was a unique feature we developed for that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking about how my relationship to high touch surface has changed, whether or not there's a pandemic in place in the public space. So I know there's a lot of efforts. So those were all my questions, and so now for comment. there's a lot of efforts to sort of revamp, regenerate parts of the downtown core, in particular in relationship to the World Cup. I know that's a big motivator for the timeline of this project. So I can completely understand how this project will benefit someone visiting internationally for the World Cup, for those 2 weeks, my understanding, right, of the World Cup. So my question is more about the local experience of these. I'd like to see more clarification about how a local with a data plan will benefit from these kiosks. I'm still kind of confused about how this giant cell phone is a motivator for me to interact with it as compared to my own small cell phone that only I touch. And that kind of gets more into thinking about the outsides, with thinking about referencing the cell phone with the form of it. Of course, as the art commissioner, I have to talk about the form just for a minute. Like oversized objects in public space does have a precedent. We can look at Klaus Oldenburg as a great example, right? And his sculptures sometimes do have an anachronistic quality to them, like a typewriter eraser now has a different feeling to us if we even know what that is now. Right. So I'm wondering, you're proposing a rollout of potentially 80 public art installations of giant cell phones.
30.
Well, yes, 30 for now, and then potentially 80 total, right? Okay, but 30, right? So we have 30 giant cell phones in these sidewalks. So I'm just wondering, of going back to this question about like the changeability of technology. It's a really important consideration for the contracting for this, and I just want to emphasize that again, because this could very, very quickly become corny, for lack of a better term, because we don't have that same timeline that a Klaus Oldenburg sculpture has with this. But I will say that Permanent Public Art in Seattle does not commission digital artwork for a contract of over 10 years because it is so hard to maintain. So I just want to point that out, because 30 years is the contract length that we have for durable sculpture. So just again, questions about that relationship with the contracting and the hardware is really huge with this, because again, it will benefit all parties involved for that question. So then questions more about the insides then. I would like to see more clarity around what the contract commitment is about granular relationships between blocks and the programming that occurs with those kiosks, because I start to see more of a benefit
within sub-districts downtown.
And who facilitates those relationships? How do you clarify that that facilitator role will exist for the duration of the contract and not just the World Cup, for example? So I think that's a really, really important piece for the argument of benefit. For
how do you curate it is what you're asking.
There's a curatorial piece to this that feels really vague to me still.
No, I agree.
And so there's the curatorial piece of the relationship with local businesses, right? So the comment about how to drive direction to local businesses, even on that block as compared to within the whole district. And then I do think that going back to the Alaska Airlines model of like partnering with SIF and things like that for these little screens that you have to stare at when you're sitting in your airplane. I'm gonna have to stare at these screens as I'm walking down the street. So what is that curatorial relationship? How is that relationship guaranteed for the duration of these existing and public spaces as well?
And we can bring back more detail there, but that curation role is really one, and responsibility is one that we're going to and have committed to. So it's not being curated from Columbus, Ohio. It's being curated by an entity that's been in place in the city for 60+ years and is doing that work today in parks and public spaces on, site the buildings for murals with artists and has those deep relationships.
And John, one of the things we're really good at DSA is reporting back, looking back, and sort of a monitoring function, is how have we performed? How's the MID performing? What are we doing in our programming? And so we could build that in, that feedback loop in, right, with Amy and in the contract to make sure that the city has eyes on it continually, right?
That's great,
Yeah.
because I think that specificity is the motivator for this, not just feeling like a
Right.
redundant
Yeah.
object in
Right.
public space.
Right. So
Which
if
you
we
don't
just say, trust us, it will be fine, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, our contract with the city and the management
Yeah, right.
and staffing the parks requires a twice a year report on that curation, the vendors we're using, where the dollars are going. So there is that transparency to Jack's point and reporting back regularly, and I would see a similar commitment here.
Those are all
Great, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, I just was wondering if you guys had ever looked at, is it specifically public right of way that you're looking to locate these on? And, I mean, I know
Yes.
it is, but is there any opportunity, have you explored any opportunity to locate them on private property? Or is that just not desirable because of location?
Go ahead.
It's not-
We've explored that and we're continuing to. None of our kiosks currently in all of our cities are in private spaces. It's something that we've looked at. It really comes down to just having a network that you can develop and having one partner to work with as opposed to 1,000 different private property owners for power and things like that.
But that's one of the connections, you know, Ben, at the DSA, you know, when we've talked to Clay and his team about that, because there are privately owned, you know, public spaces and things, plazas all around downtown, and we know where they are, and the owners of them are our members. So we think that's, you know, that's an opportunity to get the other 50 to make it to 80. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
And then I'd be really just curious, is the revenue that's going back to the city or the DSA, is that specific for a specific thing? Is it going
John.
to something, or is it just going into
the pot
DSA fund?
So the way we structured it for the pilot in downtown, and should this be expanded to other BIAs, is that the use of the revenue needs to be consistent with the enabling legislation that created the BIA, or in this case downtown, the Metropolitan Improvement District. So there's an established set of objective goals and spending criteria that tie back to public good that the council's already taken action on to articulate that guide the expenditure of the 18.5 million or so that is already generated by property owners today. That would be then carried over to the revenue generated from this program. So, and then each year the city would receive a work plan and a budget that specified the use of those revenues, and the city then actually has to contract back with us as the program manager of the entire entity before that work and those dollars can be spent.
It'd be nice to add as part of our story to Ben's point that it's not just sort of undifferentiated funds being dropped in a pot, but there, you know, we may be able to exploit the opportunity with these additional funds to do things we wouldn't otherwise have done.
Yes.
Right? And so telling that story, I think, will help make this a valuable sort of public benefit. Yeah. So we'll look for those opportunities.
And then I think somebody say that this would not be implemented in Pioneer Square. And I would just say that from my perspective would be, I wouldn't be opposed to that necessarily, only because I like the contrast of new versus old, and I think a lot of places that have brought in, well, we've even done it at Occidental Square with the Weyerhaeuser building, a modern, respectful architecture in a historic district. To me, that's not an important criteria, but maybe to others, I don't know, the Pioneer Square.
And I wrote that down, and I'm going to talk about it.
Just for me,
So it's just the lower part, it's a longer road.
Yeah.
You know, to get a C of A and you know, as you would know, and go through the boards and get, it's just a longer road. So if it's successful, you know, in the initial rollout, that's possible.
So I think the Pioneer Square area, as an example, is a place where this kind of wayfinding.
Yeah, it's a
would be
stitch between Soto and.
So we're out of time,
Yeah.
so that's the benefit.
And we haven't heard from you.
No. But, you know, I have all this great wisdom you said you plan to share.
Yeah, so
We're out of time.
maybe just
So
give us
I'm
an
gonna just
example.
roll this into how we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
It's just gonna take a few more minutes,
Okay.
I hope everybody can
Yep.
take it. I have one comment to make. Sure, none of my own. You need a declutter plan. You want the wisdom of many experiences of doing these things? Start. The first thing we should see is a declutter plan. What's going away to make room for this? and you gotta get the agencies in on it, and it's gotta, otherwise declutter. That's my word of the day. Okay, we talked about the fact that we wanna see how this fits when we come back into the hierarchy of the other wayfinding. We heard about it from from even the font thing that Tom was talking about, Brian brought it up. And you talk about you're starting to do that, but we do need to see the whole hierarchy of sign types for the downtown and how your program fits within that bigger program in order to really assess this. Adam brought up the need to see the business plan, some details of the business plan. There was even a future technology looking at. Here's my comments about the business plan. When does this thing start paying revenue? Because I'm assuming you got to pay back your investment costs. How many years have you got for that? Do you have estimates of your installation costs? Even the most wild ass, a wag at it would be great to see. How much of the advertising has to be sold before you get any revenue? All of that, all of those details, Zubin laid out for you what this is really about for us, which is the value proposition, right? Kate talked about it. Could be ever. What is the public getting that makes it worth what they're giving up? And so those parts of the business plan that help us evaluate the value proposition. The local who already has a phone doesn't want to touch, that's what we need to see. Here's a little bit of a detail. We need to see the driver distraction plan. I'm hoping the driver distraction plan has a nighttime lighting study, because another school of hard knocks, sometimes you light up people's bedrooms with these things and you don't know. Okay, in order for us to evaluate the value proposition, in order to evaluate the business proposition, unfortunately, we can't just look at these pretty boxes. We have to worry about the footing on down. And that's where all the money and all the conflict and all the unknowns and all the risk is, right? Because you have 30 different construction sites that have to be analyzed. And I heard you say you're going to put a 3 foot by 5 foot footing in. I don't know of any area that's going to be clear for 3 feet by 5 feet in all directions. So let's hear about how you're going to engineer for deeper footings or spread footings or wider footings. We have to see a picture of that to understand the payoff, to understand the value. There's a connection of all of those things together. I heard you talk about details for access for the blind. And we'd like to see some details about that, because I would think that would involve a speaker, but whatever. Then let me go grab a few more things here that I might have missed. The curatorial piece, I think, is its own heading. And I heard you talk about in terms of the business deal too, that a local advertiser, a local shop owner could maybe buy a very cheap ad or get it for free right outside their business. But the curatorial piece of sub-districts versus the whole versus how that might entice some artwork and some other things. I think that's a biggie. I think you heard a lot of things from us about doubting the 30 years. And again, that's school of hard knocks. I've seen digital things, I've seen things in the right of way, I've seen future visioning that ends up just sitting there on the street unused because the next best thing came along. So anything you can help us with the future of that would be good. There was a pitch for, could you potentially look at, I know this is in the business deal, but more dedicated slides for community, for artists, for something that isn't just this 8-to-1 hard line. Phoebe used the word a system study, so did Adam in the aesthetic study. I think that probably fits into the curatorial piece in terms of understanding the whole system versus the micro pieces that would make this successful. What else you guys? Got a lot of notes, but I don't know that any of them are in the, any more when you come back we would like to see.
We had that direct, Zubin had the point about sort of direct feedback from. Trying to keep it out, yeah.
Outreach.
Yes, right.
We need more details. On the
Agency comments, so we're gonna be, making sure that we have a feedback loop on everything that Penny gets. Parks, SPD.
I appreciated John talking about the outreach that they can do within DSA. I don't know if there's some complementary outreach that would help with disadvantaged communities or people who aren't downtown or people who barely get off the bus but might see these, some of those kinds of thoughts about outreach.
We have to find the areaway map.
Yeah.
If you find it in your house, let me know.
No.
Yeah.
In coordination with other departments.
Pretty close to it.
I think so. If everyone else feels like they've been heard and got their things on the list, we'll do it.
We've got a lot of notes too.
Yeah. We were commenting that your MOA just grew to 4 binders. Thank you. Very
Lawyer's
helpful,
dream.
very comprehensive, very informative. So thank you.
Good, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll see you in a couple months.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
I thought about commenting on the unrealisticness of your schedule, but I figured what the heck. You know?
Oh,
And Jackson has never wasted an emergency, so.
no, right, exactly, right.
Think about